We're calling ourselves mountain movers. And famous passage about what is it that moves mountains? Well, the thing that we are told that moves mountains is faith the size of a mustard seed. And the greatest things have small beginnings. And so, it might feel like as we're saying, okay, these are the three things that is a life-giving group. You talk about multiply every time we do this, Luke. I've just got a few people in my group. How are we going to multiply? I don't feel like there's maybe somebody in my group who's ready to step up and become a leader the next time that we do this. And in faith the size of a mustard seed, God will move mountains. And so I want to unpack that just a little bit here on the front end. There's a couple of different passages that talk about the mustard seed. And so one of them is in Matthew 13. And so I'm going to read this really quick to you guys. Matthew 13, he put another parable before them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. When it is the smallest of all the seed, but when it has grown, it is larger than all the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. Come and make nests in its branches. That's the first time that we see mustard seed get talked about. And so I want to highlight just a couple of things here as we think about mustard seeds and this little parable right here. And the first one is that this was a tiny thing. So if the farmer went out to go and do this, that a man went and sowed in the field, there was preparation that took place before that. There was preparation that took place before he went and did the act of planting that seed of faith, that mustard seed. Okay. So there was something that had already gone into that, probably some training of some sort. There was some knowledge. Maybe he was shown how to do it from an apprentice standpoint or whatever the case might be, but there was likely something that happened. This person had knowledge of what they needed to do in order to successfully plant that seed. Okay. Now, the other thing to be able to acknowledge with that is there was a vision for something greater. Okay? So it wasn't just planting a mustard seed for the sake of a mustard plant. Instead, there was this larger vision at play in this. And we see it here of what it was that's going to happen. It's the smallest of all the seeds, but whenever it is grown, it is larger than all the garden plants, becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air, this is the next part, the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. And so there's this vision at the end that this is going to provide something for other people. It's going to have a benefit and effect for the community, for the environment around it. Is going to help be sustained by the practice of this act of faith. And so I really want to share that with us today to remind us of those things, because we likely know those, but it's easy to think past it, because where we usually think about the mustard seed, we go to, and I'm going to click, I got a little slide for this here, which is just, it's easy for us to go to Matthew 17-20, which is where it gets talked about again, and think, because you have so little faith, truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And so this reminder for us that there is vision and faith, and they go hand in hand. That the reason why we do the things that we do as a group leader are because we are believing for something huge. But we can also acknowledge that starts with something small. And so I just want to encourage you as a group leader with that today, is that what you're doing might feel small, but at times, big things trace back to something very, very small. And so the next thing that I want to do for us is I want to talk about our next steps. Okay, we have 21 next steps, and this is where we're going to spend the majority of our time here talking about this. And I want to highlight some resources for you guys. And then at the back end, we're going to talk a little bit of logistics around some schedule for us, just to have clear expectations moving forward together. And so our 21 next steps, I'm producing something for us. Let me change how it is and share my screen here to show us this. going to stop there and jump over to what's the next one? 20 steps. All right. So what we have here for us is these 21 next steps of discipleship. And I am very quickly going to rattle some of these off and show you some of the resources that are coming around this to be able to help you. I want to highlight some of the things that you guys were already celebrating. Some of our group leaders were on the front end about what they're seeing God do in their groups right now. And so, some of these things, again, they're not the biggest steps. You might feel like some of these things maybe aren't a big deal for you in the season of your faith, and they are a huge deal for a newer believer or whatever the case. And so Sunday morning, just for somebody to make a goal to be there more, for it to become a more consistent habit in their life is one of the things. A number of these things go along with our habits as a church, of course. And so we've created some sub-steps here that would go along with this. One of the things that's going to help people take those next steps is to have some additional camaraderie, expectation on the fellowship side of who they're going to sit with when they come to service. If you're a part of a group, come and sit with your group. You guys make plans around that. But then one of the other things is that people can sign up to serve. I honestly, the number of conversations that I've had with people in this area of like, you know what, if I had to serve, I bet I would be there more. And they just feel like something would be pulling them towards it. It's a stronger yes that they're saying to rather than a no to some of the other things that might prevent them from coming to church. And so there's that right there. Encounter Connect is going to be mentioned in so many of these things. But then, of course, we've got salvation, water baptism, join a group, start serving, reaching out is what I put on here, similar to bringing, giving. These are all standard things as a part of our habit. But I want to highlight this one right here, which is make 2 new friends. Make 2 new friends. And just what a great thing that is to be a next step for somebody, that they are taking steps towards living in community. By doing that, they're having to put themselves out there a little bit more. And when you create a new relationship, friendship with somebody around God's family, who knows what's going to happen because of that. And so that person could help you have opportunities to serve. The person could help you have new opportunities to join a group. You could ask, they could join a group with you, whatever the case might be. But so many different things that could go along with that, as that's number 9 right there. 10, Bible. There's so many that would go along with this. James Southwick and I love to joke about how if you would ask any Christian at any given time when they're coming out of a church service, okay, so what's the thing that you need to do, this week? And they're always going to look at us. They're going to say, well, I think I need to pray more and I need to read my Bible more. And well, we've got things for both of those on here, of course, in regards to Bible, in regards to prayer. We've even broken prayer up into a couple different categories, more specific. But on the Bible side of things, one that I want to highlight as a part of this for us is if somebody says that they don't have time to study the Bible, maybe you can relate to a time in your life where you would have said the same thing. And we want to meet people right there and help them continue to take a next step. And so one of the things that we can do in that situation is to help them memorize scripture and to say, hey, you know what? Maybe you feel like you can't be jumping in the Bible for 15 or 20 minutes. We got to start somewhere, right? With everybody, we're talking A to B with folks. How do we help them take one next step? We're not talking A to Z. We've got a course for that that Linda's a part of helping lead with our how to study the Bible, but we're still, even in that course, just taking baby steps, one step at a time. And so a great next step for somebody there would be to start memorizing scripture. And so we've got that right there, a bunch of linked resources as well. One of the parts of some of these linked resources, so as a group leader, is it gives us the opportunity as distinct culture, as Encounter Church, that we would have shared language. That when Pastor Champ is up on stage and he's referencing something from the Moody Handbook, or he's referencing something from from the Bible, from the MacArthur Bible commentary, that people would be able to say, oh yeah, like if I'm going to get one as a church member, this is probably the direction I go, because I know that this is what my pastor is also going to reference, and I can be tracking along through that process there. So then we've got these two on prayer. Then I mentioned briefly personal prayer, and then also prayer aloud. And really excited, two things here. On the personal prayer front, I think a lot of people have taken a great next step. I've gotten to hear some great stories here throughout the month of February, as people have committed with the 28 days of prayer to have a 30-minute slot of prayer in addition to what they already were probably doing. But every single week where they had that. And so this has been a great practice for our church. I'm excited for us to do this for years to come, and some of the next steps that people have taken from that. But also on the prayer aloud side of things. And for, as Linda was sharing, one of our group leaders here, about how she has seen the people in her group get better in this and take next steps there. Where it started with, hey, you know what? You can say anything. You just need to start with, dear Jesus, tell them how you feel, talk to God, and end with amen. And sometimes similar to the next step that we had up there of making new friends, that we can almost over spiritualize some of these things and create barriers that we don't need to have. And so really excited to get to celebrate with you guys on that. Other practices for some of those, might be actually just writing out what the prayer is. And a great next step for somebody would be to, hey, even give them a week advance that it's going to happen, and say, hey, you know what? Next week, I would like to see you pray aloud. And so if you could this week, take some time and just write out a prayer. And then next week, you don't have to feel the pressure of, oh, well, I don't know. You've had time to prepare for it. You can write it out and you can read that prayer. You can go and find other prayers that people even do, and you could have that as a basis for you. Personally, myself, one of the prayers that I'm doing in this season, because Rin Collective just released a new song on this, but is St. Patrick's Prayer. And so just something right there. And then I like to do the Lectio 365, especially in the morning. It really helps me to focus and for myself by doing some guided prayer on that. And so as a component of that, they will often have, and we've got some of that linked on here as well, the Lectio 365 app, but a personal prayer. And they're going to reference different apostolic prayers in scripture, but then also some prayers from saints throughout the church. And so just some different options for people within that. So rounding out a couple more of these that I just want to highlight for you guys. Personal worship is one. Family worship time. I want to incorporate some things that Ashley's doing and link those in here. For example, every single week, you can scan a QR code and get the devotion for the kids areas as we have that. And then there's Brandon sends out really good resources once a month for our ESM teams as well. Fasting, and then identity, two great opportunities for that. Marriage, parenting, grandparenting, and then unhealthy habits, emotional growth, and next steps in leadership. Round us out there, and could do full trainings on some of those things, and those will look to come into the future. But want to take a moment and share with you guys. We've got 6 now. 6 of those 21, I have quick little, roughly 2 minutes. 2 minutes is kind of my goal, not to really try to be longer than 3 videos of these next steps up on YouTube. And so I've got a playlist called Next Steps, where I'm producing videos around these next steps and highlighting some of those sub steps that go along with them. And so to know, how is this a resource to you as a group leader? And the intent, the heart behind these things, is that you would see basically a category that somebody could be taking a next step. Well, this for you is kind of a primer for what that could look like, to help you pray through how to invite them to take a next step in that area. But also, you might just send them the video to be able to watch themselves. And so some of the videos, the 6 videos that we've got up right now, are make 2 new friends, are giving and generosity, personal prayer and prayer aloud. We've got those up. And then personal worship is one that I was able to publish today, as well as baptism next step. And so as just people have an opportunity to learn a little bit more, there's not a ton of details. I have not spent the time in these videos trying to convince somebody to take a next step in this area. That's not what these videos are for. Instead, these videos are more logistical from the standpoint of, if you want to take a next step in this area, these are some options that you can do that. And so just to understand what this video is and what it's not. These videos are more logistical process type of videos of, I feel like I need to take a next step in this area of my life. What are some options that I could do that? And then you would be able to press the video for that. So it's not on the convincing side. These aren't terribly motivational type of videos. Instead, this is helping connect the dots, or I feel like I'm drawn into to do something in this area, category of my life. What could that look like? Press play, 2 minutes. This prayer aloud one's only 1:15 actually, around that. And so there, in the baptism one is, there's a little bit of instruction in the baptism one. There's a little bit of instruction in the giving and generosity one. But more than anything, these are more on the logistical side of things, of how would people take the next step, not why would they take a next step in this area. So that is our 21 next steps. And this is something that we're going to hit every time we do one of these meetings, or that we get together. Constantly want to be drawing back to these 21 next steps and then highlighting ways that people in our groups are growing. The biggest one has to do with prayer aloud that I heard. And especially whether this was in response to the 28 days of prayer or just the continual prompting of the group leader. Linda was able to share how she's had a number of group members in her group continue to take next steps in that way. A story from one of my groups. I remember the first time a guy named Kyle was sitting next to me in group, and the way that I run our group is, at the end, everybody's going to pray for the person to one of the sides of them. We'll just kind of switch every given week, whatever the case, but they're going to hear what's going on. And so oftentimes I, as a group leader with a new, even if it's a brand new group member, this is something that I ask them to do. And I said, hey, you know what? This doesn't have to be really long. And I try to make sure to use the name of the person as much as possible that they're going to be praying for. And we'll kind of really try to set them up and tee them up for that. And Kyle was praying for me. So I made it even easier. I personally had invited him myself. And then in addition to that, I was kind of setting him up, told him, hey, these are some things that I could use prayer for. And he followed the template that we all did of, dear God, come to you on behalf of this person. This is something that's going on in their life. Amen. And that it wasn't really long. And what he said afterwards, he said, that wasn't so bad, sort of thing. And he was really proud of himself for being able to do that. He even said on the front, he said, hey, I really don't do this a lot. And I've often gotten that response out of some people, and how exciting it is as a group leader when we see people taking those types of next steps. Something small, having huge impact, and moving spiritual mountains in people's lives. And especially, I feel like prayer aloud is a really, I don't completely want to say easy one, but there's such tangible fruit on that. As somebody does that practice, they get confidence. They're able to continue to do it. They're able to pray more with other types of people as well. And so, that's one where we can really see compounding, and we never know exactly where that one's going to end up. But you could say that about so many of these areas and so many of these 21 next steps. And so I really want to encourage you guys with that right there on that, and just to know about this resource that you have here around on this YouTube playlist, and that we're going to continue to build these out. I've got 2 other videos that are already shot that I'm in editing on, and so we should be at number 8 coming up in the next week on that, and we'll continue to march to 21. So we've got that right there for us. The other resource that we have is some of our group leader training. And so we've got 6 parts of this. 5 are sent already connected with right now media interactive content for you. And these are shorter. Let me tell you, how do these videos fit in for you? And so these are group leader training, small group leader training videos for us. Now, the function of these videos is to introduce the interactive content on Right Now Media, which allows you to just kind of think through something and is going to ask for some responses from you in a reflective style. And I've created these videos so that you could put them on after your group is done meeting and you've transitioned into this meeting after the meeting time of your group, that you could put one of these on for 4 to 5 minutes and think through, how do we, as leaders of this group, as assistant leaders of this group, continue to grow as leaders respectively. And so the 6 that we've got up and live right now are creating a great group atmosphere. It is group-centric growth. How do we grow who's in the group? And then there's connecting people together, spiritual potency of a group, managing group dynamics, and managing difficult people. And so we have those 6 that are already developed there, editing video number 7, continuing to march through. There will be 12 topics total for this. Want to plug an additional resource for you guys as a group leader. I would highly, highly suggest reading Michael Murphy's book, Accelerate. I don't have my fancy sleeve on it. I've just got this right here. But he does talk about these 12 topics that we will be going into. And so I just want to give you just a forecast of where we're going to head with what are 7 through 12. So we've grabbed the 12 topics, training topics that he has in his book, and we've developed course content from there. James Southwick, Champ, and myself working through that. And so also just to know that as you guys have suggestions on these types of things, I want to continue to build these out, and I'll come back around of what the future of this is going to look like. But just to give you numbers 7 through 12 really quickly here. Number 7, handling difficult people. Number 8, triaging life crises. 9, helping everyone take their next discipleship step. Number 10, uncovering people's calling. 11, mobilizing all members on mission. And 12, raising your future leaders. And so that's where we're heading, in addition to the 6 that you've already heard me say here. And so want to celebrate something really quick on this standpoint, and then pivot from there. So managing group dynamics, which is going to be training episode number 5, training session number 5. We have this in here, and kind of some of the subpoints around this. Oh, hold on here. Let me pause on it. There it is. All right. So we've got in number 5, managing group dynamics. You've got the culture that you're creating, which would include setting the structure and the agenda for what's going to happen in the group time, how much people are going to participate, but also building expectation for 3D leadership. And again, remember, the questions that we ask are really going to shape, and the way that we respond to people, how that gets played out. Now that's number 5, but then training number 6 on managing group dynamics, on managing difficult people or tough people, is the tough questions that people ask. You also being able to ask tough questions, tough people to deal with. And this can be from a life standpoint. Now, granted, there's a whole other training that's more specific to that coming, but also tough truths tempered in love. And sometimes we just have to say the thing. And so I want to celebrate. Linda shared that she's got a group member who can often make things about them, and a little bit of a pity party, going through a very tough season of life. And small group isn't the time to get the long-winded answer and update for that every single week, because it can quickly become about that person. And so we get to celebrate on the front end, some of the steps that their group has been able to take to where that's not the main focus of the group. The group doesn't exist to get updates on this family and to make sure that they're doing okay. The main purpose of the group, and her group is how to study the Bible, is to help people be able to study the Bible more. And so that's where the time and the energy needs to be focused. I've also had some really great conversations with Kim Cup about this, and a few other group leaders as well have responded to some of the ways that in our last meeting, I talked about some of that staying on track or landing the plane and so forth, just around some of these things. But it can be really difficult in some of those very unique life circumstances. And so I've got a whole training that's going to come out for that one as well. But wanted to celebrate that there's growth for you as a leader when you're able to do that. And there's oftentimes growth on the spiritual maturity side of things for the people in your group as they don't want to kind of continue to make it about them, but you're able to redirect and cast vision and lead them to with the whole rest of the group in that direction. So celebrating that with you guys very quickly, just from a primer standpoint. If you're jumping on and watching this, but you haven't been into the interactive content portion yet, you're going to get an email that assigns it to you. You're able to jump on, and as you watch the first one of each one of these, then is that introductory training video that just lays out, hey, this is what we're talking about. That gives you some expectation for it, and then is going to get a little bit deeper into each one of those bullet points, with the idea being there's some sort of a reaction or response that you're going to give. Sometimes that's a personal story. Sometimes that is, hey, if you were in this situation, what are you going to do about it? But just for all of us to continue to grow together as a part of that. One other new thing that I want to share with you guys, and this has to do with our schedule. And so let me share what this is going to look like, just so that we've got good clarity across the board on this. So we are back over here and just highlighting our 3 sessions that we have every year. So there's something new that's coming into this for us. So we've got our spring, our summer, and our fall group sessions, right? And now, again, I've got the length or the duration of these listed on here. That doesn't mean that your group needs to go that entire length, but it means you've got the option to be able to do that. Now, it doesn't mean that childcare is going to be required, or sorry, the childcare is going to be provided for all of that. But we'll continue to have those discussions. The thing that I want to highlight that's different on here is going to be this first bullet point on each of these things right now. And what this is basically 6 weeks before that session is going to start, that we are going to have decisions made about what all of our groups that are going to be launching are going to be studying. Now, here's what that allows us to do. That gives us a couple of weeks to get all of our print materials and all of our digital materials lined up, so that as we're recruiting new people to join our groups, they're able to get on and to sign up, and that they're able to just to know what their options are. And then everything is ready to go live, and we've got a full month that we're pursuing hard with that. And it gives us the opportunity to make sure that we are inviting people based on the potential next steps that people could take around the content that we will be studying. And so the new one that's on here, again, is this first bullet point of putting some deadlines on when we need you to identify what your next study is going to be for that session. And then it puts us in a spot where people can sign up to know what types of next steps they'll be taking based on the content, as well as how we can best work together as a team to do that. So the one caveat to this, you say, well, heck, January, we didn't start the first week of January. You're right, we didn't start the first week of January. And so when we probably will continue to delay into the third week of January for us to launch groups. I'll say a quick note about momentum here in a minute, but This November 15th study time gives us the opportunity, study deadline gives us the opportunity to all throughout the holiday season to be trying to make appointments, to try to connect to people, to invite them for what's going to happen in the new year. And so just wanted to highlight that for you all, this update here on the deadlines for what our study is going to be in the next session, and so that we can create some really great invites around, again, those next steps for that. So as we get ready to close here, momentum. This is oh, sorry, I've got one more thing, and then we're going to talk through momentum. And so the one last thing is you're thinking through the summer and what are you going to be studying? Because we're going to be coming up on that April 15th. You know, we've got a month and a half now. We've got 6 weeks until we decide if you're going to be leading a group in the summer, what is it that you're going to be studying? And so some options for that are 2 big studies that we're highlighting through the year are our God, Money, and Me study, where Keith Foreman can come into your group and be a part of teaching that, in addition to the God, Money, and Me study through Paul DeYoung. And then the other one is Impact, which is a study on making disciples, which is a parallel study with a book called Contagious by Mark Mickelberg. And so John and Shirley Sissel will come into your group and to be a part of teaching that. Currently, they're in my group teaching that. And next, I know they're going to go into a young adults group on Thursday nights to where they'll be teaching it after that. And so I say all of that to say those would be amazing options for you as you look into what study do you want to be a part of leading in the summer and the fall of this year. And you've got your deadlines listed here for that. Last thing here is on momentum. And so just as we wrap up, here we've been a little bit of stop, go, stop, go, stop, go, and it can be really hard to capture momentum. For example, we had, I think, three weeks in a row, basically, that some groups will not have met on Wednesday night. My group hasn't met for 2 of those weeks in a row. Now, not only is there those 2 weeks in a row, but if there was a family who had childcare the week before, or they had a kid who was sick the week before and they weren't there, or they have childcare tonight, or somebody else sick, it very quickly can stack up against us of people missing our group for that. And so I would just want to ask you not to take it for granted that the people who showed up to your group are going to continue to come back, but instead, let's make sure that we're being good shepherds, and that we are continuing to steward the relationships that we have with these people. We're continuing to help them pursue what those next steps looks like based on the content that we're studying, but also just loving and caring for them well. Having a genuine culture of caring for the people in your group. That's what we're asking of you. And so you can gain a lot of momentum with that right there. That and identifying, as you've identified what that next step for them looks like, holding them accountable to it, allowing you to inspect what you're expecting for them to do that. And so just want to encourage you as a group leader to continue to do that right there. Help drill down on what those next steps look like, which invites you into the conversation to regularly be checking in on the people in your group, loving on them, knowing what's going on in their life, and consistently asking, hey, how's this area going? I'm praying for God to move like this, because faith the size of a mustard seed will move mountains. So let's work on these small habits. Let's pray that they're going to compound, and believing even bigger things, knowing that one day that mustard seed that's planted is going to become the biggest tree in the garden, and it's going to house nest for birds and have a huge impact, so much more than just this one tiny little thing going into the ground. And so I'm believing that for you, for your group, for our groups as a whole, and know that because of the groups here at Encounter Church, that our community is going to be impacted. And so thanks so much for tuning in today. Praying for you, group leader. Be blessed.